Well, here we are with one of the town's most interesting characters, Bob Beers. How you going, Bob?
Oh, good. Good,
Good to meet you.
It's great to meet you, Bob. Thanks for having a chat with us.
So quite a few feats under your belt, Bob.
Yeah. I've crossed Australia 6 times now without using a motor.
That's
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah.
And when you say not using a motor, you mean like on foot and on a push bike, or what are you?
Yeah, there's various different ways I did it. I've walked across
Yep.
Australia, I've kayaked across Australia, and you can do that if you tow the kayak without using a motor. Tow it up over the range,
Yeah.
and you can still walk, get across Australia that way. And I've walked, kayaked, and cycled four times across Australia.
That's amazing. What
with
made
no
you?
backup at all.
And you used to plant food stashes along the way. Is that right? So you'd plant your food ahead, and then you'd go and do the trip.
That's what I had to do on the walking, yeah.
Yep.
When I walked across Australia, yeah, I hired a car at Mount Isa.
Yeah. Right.
But previous to that, I'd posted some stuff up through the post to the stations on Birdsville track
Wow.
and 2 north of Birdsville.
Yeah.
And then just bought, at Mount Isa, I bought food, and then I delivered it with a car, and then walked to it. Then came back to Mount Isa again and then walked over.
That's awesome.
Ever tempted to have a nibble on the drive?
Get into the back.
Oh no, I didn't eat my own food.
And now, on the western edge of the desert, marathon runner Bob Beer will become the first man ever to run across the Simpson. For months, Bob Beer looked in vain for a sponsor. Finally, he persuaded businessman Dick Smith to fund the essential backup crew of men and four-wheel drive vehicles.
Bob's a very remarkable man to do the achievements that he's done. He's very humble and he doesn't say what he's done. He's the first man to ever run the Simpson Desert, 6.5 days. 2 marathons a day in the desert.
Amazing.
That's not too bad. He had backup on that trip's the only trip that he had backup on, and the Land Rovers couldn't keep up with him in the desert. They were having a battle, and there is a documentary on it, and you'll see Bob carrying his own water and following a compass bearer, and there wasn't enough roads out there to follow. He just stuck on a bearer and hoped that the Land Rovers caught up with him later on.
Yeah.
And fortunately they did, but in 6.5 days later he came out at Birdsville, so he crossed from west to east.
To reach Birdsville in the 6 days he has set himself, Bob Beer must run the equivalent of 2 marathons a day. And that's not all. Rolling across this vast expanse, like great motionless waves, are exactly 1,186 sand dunes, most of them 30 metres or more in height. Each and every one of them must be crossed by Bob Beer before he reaches Birdsville. This is one of the toughest marathons ever attempted in Australia. 6 days of unrelenting physical effort and mental concentration. A monumental run across a treeless desert where the temperature each day will hover around 35 degrees.
Just keep running direct, just use you got your compass.
Yeah.
Just stay heading and we'll see you in an hour or 2.
Righto.
Yeah, and take the water too. Okay. We'll see you whenever.
Yeah, right.
Don't worry about it, we'll find you.
Righto. Day 3. Far out in the very centre of the desert, Bob Beer has settled into the run and is moving at peak efficiency. But the vehicles are a different story. There are constant problems and tempers run short. And then, near disaster, the one eventuality the party fears the most. I made one mistake in the desert once, but I was very lucky to have a good backup crew, and I'd done something illogical. I'd walked ahead of the vehicles when I should have waited. And I wasn't sure how to retrace my steps. So that meant I was alone in the desert without water,
and I might not get back to the vehicles. I started thinking, well, how far is it from here to Birdsville? I think it was about 100 miles, maybe a bit more. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to walk it, and definitely couldn't run it. So the thing to do was to really rely on my backup only. That's all I had, and to make sure that I did nothing silly myself.
Wow. On his walk, he walked from south to north, stashed his own food, didn't have backup, done it all by himself.
Yeah.
On his push bike ride from Perth to Port Macquarie, he carried his own food on the bike. He figure-eighted Australia, left Port Augusta, carried all his own food, didn't have backup. Figure-eighted, went up through the middle, round the west coast, right around to Townsville, back to Port Augusta. Later on, he done Tasmania. No backup.
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
He kayaked from Port Alma up the, what's that river?
The Fitzroy.
Fitzroy River.
Up Fitzroy and
as far as he could.
Yeah.
Put his kayak on a little trailer with the two axles and towed it behind his push bike down to
Gundawindi.
Which river's that? Which river's that? Gundawindi, the McIntyre.
McIntyre, yeah.
Threw his kayak into the McIntyre and paddled all the way to Murray Mouth in South Australia, unassisted.
Yeah,
Incredible.
that
That's
is
incredible.
absolutely amazing.
And you thought you got a bug halfway down there.
Yeah. You got Ross River fever.
Ross River
Oh,
fever
right.
halfway
Yeah.
down there and fought that on
Yeah.
the way down, unassisted.
Wow,
That's remarkable.
that is remarkable.
Incredible.
How did you when you were doing these things? Was there certain things that you used to eat, or did you just make sure you ate quite healthy? And I bet you were fit.
Yeah, well, what I had to do when I'm buying food was one thing. Most of the cases you wouldn't buy butter or margarine because it would melt.
Yep.
In a lot of the places.
Yep.
So I didn't buy that, but I'd buy biscuits and salami and whatever will keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no fridge, no esky or nothing like
Just
that.
heaps of jerky and good stuff.
Just and good stuff. And,
Oh wow.
yeah.
You could have taken that schnitzel we had at the pub last night.
Yeah,
That
that's
would've-
right.
that
That's
would've
right.
kept
This is
a
pretty
few
hard.
months.
But that's, I mean, Bob, I think for someone to do that, like, and just go, oh, I'm going to go and cross Australia. I'm going to go around, not only once, but I'll do it 5 or 6 times. And as Bernie was saying, some of those things, like the Simpson Desert Cross, was the equivalent of you running a marathon twice every day, and that's just fascinating.
insane.
So yeah.
Bob, was there any time that you can remember where you thought about throwing it in? I mean, you had Ross River fever. That's an exhausting illness to.
Yeah, that's right. Ross River fever really did knock me about, and actually I did get some help there. They rang the flying doctor, and a lady called Sophie came down to see me at the place where I was cracked up at the bank of the river.
Yeah.
And she spoke to the flying doctor by telephone, and he gave a number, and then she gave me these tablets to take. I took one, and I'd lost all the pain that I had with Ross River fever. But it still took me another couple of days then before I was well enough to be able to keep kayaking.
Yeah.
Because I ran the Simpson Desert on a heartbeat of 80 beats a minute. And when I went to first go from this place, my heartbeat went up to 150 in the first 3 or 4 minutes.
Wow.
Wow.
I knew I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just pulled back and kayaked back to where I was.
So even with that, you never thought about giving up.
No, that one was the biggest test though, was
Yeah.
giving up there. But there was another time when I was I rang up from Snowtown over in West Australia when I was doing the bike trip around Australia and the kayak the figure of 8 bike trip.
Yeah.
And as I was going down the West Australian coast, there was 2 trucks came at me, and they were both wide loads, and they were really roaring. I mean, and I was going fast towards them because I had the wind behind me. One passed the other, and I was lucky to get off the road. Otherwise, I was going to get. I nearly got run over. So I rang up Martin Wanamendi. He was the journalist here at the paper at the time, and he talked me into continuing on. I was going to chuck it in.
You were going to
there.
chuck it in there, yeah, right.
Yeah, because it was dangerous. I had good gears on my bike.
Did you?
Yes, better than what you usually buy because I got them like in town to fit them for me.
Right.
And I said, I want to be able to pedal at 2 beats a minute at 50 kilometres an hour. He said, I know what you're talking about. He said, you don't want to be knocking yourself out just trying to keep up with the wind. I said, that's right.
And Bob, with his mathematical brain, worked out that he could be coming across the Nullarbor at a certain month, I'm not sure which month it was, and the average wind in that month came from the west, and the average speed of the wind in that month was whatever speed it was, and Bob would be able to pedal at a certain speed with the gear ratios to be travelling at a certain speed and knew what time it would take to go across the Nullarbor. He could work all that out.
That's awesome. So,
Pretty well.
yeah, so
Pretty well,
I
that's
reckon
right,
that
yeah.
probably contributed to why you were successful in doing all this stuff. So you obviously thought everything through, right down to the to the gears you needed on your bike. So that's pretty impressive, Bob. You're the most interesting bloke I've ever met.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really fascinating. And now you apparently the word around town is you've got the best Russian garlic. Is this correct?
I've got some real nice big Russian garlic, yeah.
Oh,
and it is
beautiful.
nice stuff to eat.
And you send it off to the Sydney markets, do you?
No.
Only for the people
Just
in
locals,
Walker
eh?
to enjoy.
Well, it's mainly around here or around the markets in the area.
All right,
Yeah,
we
great.
better
We'll have to sample
we
a
better
bit
get
of
some
that.
of that
I
and
think
get
so.
it into us.
Yeah, I'll get you some.
Yeah.
I'll get you some,
Beautiful.
But
yeah.
that's fascinating. You are an absolute hero, Bob, and I
What
appreciate
an
you having a chat
inspiration.
to us.
It's
Thanks.
an honour
Yeah,
to meet you.
that's
You do
fantastic.
Good on you, Bob.
Yeah, well
Bob
done.
Beer, everyone. That's he's the man as far as I'm concerned.